What's going on, everyone? When Kevin Durant was on the Golden State Warriors, they were literally unbeatable. They would have three-peated. Unfortunately, the entire team got injured and decimated, and thus the Toronto Raptors ended up winning the NBA Finals. And then Kevin Durant ended up leaving, going with Kyrie over to the Brooklyn Nets. But what if Kevin Durant is to return to the Golden State Warriors? It would really make a ton of sense for all teams involved. Now, right off the bat, the Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant experiment may be coming to an end. I mean, Kevin Durant hasn't even spoke to the front office or anybody in the organization since they were eliminated. Kyrie Irving seems to be on his way out, although he could opt in this year, and then the Brooklyn Nets may trade him. There's lots of talks about that. Even Sean Marks, the owner, had went and met with the Lakers about a potential trade, and it looks like the Brooklyn Nets are essentially done with Kyrie Irving and his antics. So I imagine that Kyrie Irving, if he gets traded, Kevin Durant is likely going to want to leave because the only reason he went there was for Kyrie Irving. And the return in which they would get for Kyrie Irving is going to be bare minimum. I mean, there's only likely a handful of teams that would actually take on Kyrie Irving. And amongst those teams, none of them are really going to give quality assets to where Kevin Durant feels like, okay, I'm still on a contender. So therefore, it's like, I'm the only player here with a bunch of role players. Do I really want to stay here and try to do this for a year or two or several? Or do I want to go to another team and take my chances and win a championship? And I know you may be thinking, well, Kevin Durant left the Warriors because he wanted to go lead his own team. Well, he did that and it's been a failure. And so Kevin Durant, his options are going to be very limited. Now, he might not go to the Warriors, but he's also under contract. So he doesn't have many options. And it's going to come down to assets that would be tradable for Kevin Durant. Yeah, he could request a handful of teams that he wants to go to, but out of those teams, what is going to be the return? What is going to be the assets? And will Brooklyn actually want those assets? Because essentially, if you're moving off of Kyrie and Kevin Durant, you're essentially rebuilding, right? So just for argument's sake, let's say the Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook trade happens, right? Now, maybe Kevin Durant and Westbrook have reconciled. The last we heard, they did. And maybe they're willing to try it out for a year and see what happens. Russell Westbrook's contract is off the books, and then Kevin Durant can kind of pick his player. Maybe he goes and asks for Bradley Beal, and Bradley Beal joins him in Brooklyn. Bradley would be a free agent, assuming he doesn't sign an extension. The Lakers get Kyrie Irving to pair with LeBron James. The Lakers are one of the few teams that likely would take on Kyrie. Maybe they throw in a couple other assets, but essentially this would be the base of the trade. And then if Kevin Durant doesn't want to stay with Westbrook, well, then it works for the Brooklyn Nets because now Brooklyn, they have Westbrook with whatever pieces they have remaining, plus the Kevin Durant trade, and then Westbrook is off the books the following year. So it's a win-win for Brooklyn. So I do think this trade is plausible. Not saying that it will happen, but this is just an example. So let's say Kyrie Irving is traded, right? And you have Westbrook, then what ends up happening from there? Well, the Golden State Warriors, as I mentioned, would make a lot of sense. They have a ton of assets. Kevin Durant has shown after the injury to still be that unstoppable force in so many ways. And I know you may be thinking, well, the Boston Celtics basically shut down Kevin Durant and swept the Nets. Yes, but they honed in on Kevin Durant. Like if you watch that game, if you know anything about defenses and stuff, they basically said, we're going to stop Kevin Durant and make everybody else beat us. And everyone else wasn't able to beat them. Kevin Durant had no easier of a time than being on the Golden State Warriors. Also, when it comes to the Golden State Warriors, whether they win the NBA Finals this year or not, then they have a lot of changes and decisions that they need to make beginning this offseason and for their future. And so a package of, say, Wiseman, Kuminga, and Andrew Wiggins for a Kevin Durant, maybe Golden State throws in a couple more things, whatever, but this would be sort of the pieces to go get a Kevin Durant. I think it would make a ton of sense. The other thing, too, that you have to keep in mind, they're going to have to extend and pay Jordan Poole very soon. And so if you're going to pay him, are you really going to have Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, all these guys on max contracts? No. So you basically are replacing, two young players, but Wiseman hasn't even really played for them, and that's no real loss there. Kuminga is a young prospect that could be very good, but the Warriors don't really have much room for him. He's not playing much, especially in the playoffs. Andrew Wiggins has been phenomenal for the Warriors, but he's not Kevin Durant. So essentially, you're moving off Andrew Wiggins, who is going to be a contract you're going to need to renew anyway, and you're going and getting Kevin Durant, you pay Jordan Poole, and now you just have this monster of a lineup. And Kevin Durant offers everything that Andrew Wiggins does. We know that he can fit into the system of the Golden State Warriors. It's just a great spot for Kevin Durant to be in once again. And I know the conversations and the talks will be, oh, look, he can't win. Especially if the Warriors win this year, the whole discussion will be like, look, the Warriors don't need Kevin Durant to win a championship. But the Golden State Warriors, they want to be a dynasty. They want to win every single year if possible. And this essentially does that. Not just that, but you have more pieces now than you did previously. So if there are injuries, you're still in a good position. Like as long as you have Kevin Durant and say Steph, and let's say Clay goes down again, you're good. As long as your entire roster doesn't get destroyed like what happened, several years ago, then you're in a good position. And you still have Jordan Poole. You can develop him. You can keep him. You could even decide to trade him for several assets to deepen your team if you want. You could even go that route. But ultimately, getting Kevin Durant back on the Warriors would be great. And Kevin Durant, as sensitive as he is at times and as emotional as he can be, he doesn't care. He already dealt with the whole, he went to the Warriors, look at all that. That conversation he already dealt with. It's not going to hurt for him to go again. Plus, the conversation probably isn't going to be as bad as it was originally when he first decided to go to the Warriors. Yeah, the conversation will be like, look, he needs the Warriors don't need him. But I don't think Kevin Durant cares. He just wants to be in a happy, stable environment, which he needs. He wants to be with people that he can relate to and things like that. Draymond and him, they still have their little beef. But the Warriors, if they really wanted to, they could even move off of Draymond. And I understand Draymond does a lot, but if you have Kevin Durant on your team with Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, you can move off of Draymond. Draymond has been a non-factor in the finals, entirely. He's not the same player. He's shown he's not the same player. Yes, he does more than what the stats show, and you have to give him that credit, but I'm sure that they're all adults. They're all professionals. It just comes down to, would Kevin Durant actually want to go here? But again, he may not have no choice, because what better package would this be than that another team can offer? I mean, you get a nice young wing who has tons of potential and upside. You get a nice young center who many people thought was going to be a superstar in this league. Yeah, he's dealt with injuries, but we've seen guys like Embiid not play several seasons and then develop into the best center in the entire league. And you get Andrew Wiggins, who can be that young stud. Not just that, but you still have Ben Simmons. So essentially you have this core of Simmons, Wiseman, Kuminga, and then Andrew Wiggins. That's a pretty good four for your future and for the present. Not to mention everyone else they have. Seth Curry, you have Joe Harris. You have all these guys that are still a part of the team that could really be beneficial. And you have this nice young core to build around. If you did the Westbrook trade, like I said, you have essentially $50 million off the books. You could go and get several new players. Not just that, but Andrew Wiggins would be a free agent as well. So essentially, you'd have Ben Simmons, Kuminga, and Wiseman, plus all your role players, and $70 million to spend. That's a pretty good situation for the Brooklyn Nets to be in. And if these three young guys are great and they are, productive on the court, then you might be able to get a star or two to come to Brooklyn to team up with these three young core guys, and now you're great. And Ben Simmons, he's not the number one guy on your team. I get that. But Kuminga could develop into that. Wiseman could develop into that. And you have the point is you have this foundation that would be very great for the Brooklyn Nets, plus whatever assets they would get from the Lakers for Kyrie Irving. And you just have this established core for your future. Kevin Durant, he gets to go back to the Warriors where he's been successful. He's won championships. They likely win another 2 or 3 championships with the team that they have. It's just a great situation all around for all parties involved. I mean, right now, you have Steph, you have Jordan, you have Clay, you have Wiggins, and you have Draymond as your death lineup. You're basically just replacing Andrew Wiggins with Kevin Durant, who we saw was an unbeatable lineup before. The only difference is now you have Jordan Poole, plus you have all these other pieces. I just think it would be great for them. And the Warriors, at the end of the day, they have to make a decision, because you have to re-sign or extend Andrew Wiggins. So are you really going to pay him a max? Like, let's say he takes a pay cut to come back. Are you really going to pay him $20 million a year for that? And then on top of that, you have to sign Jordan Poole. You're paying a ridiculous luxury tax bill for a team that, yes, is really good and is in the finals. And let's say they win the finals, is a finals team, but are they going to be able to replicate that for several years? They're small. We've seen a lot of the flaws and issues that this Warrior team has. Kevin Durant is the ultimate make-upper, right? He would make up for a lot of these flaws, right? And he is a lot more consistent than Andrew Wiggins. Basically, you're not going to outscore Klay, Jordan, Steph, and KD. And we're seeing in these finals right now that Steph has to put up 30 to 40 points a game for the Warriors to win. If you have Kevin Durant, if he has a bad game, you're still good because KD is still probably going to get you 30. It just makes everyone else not have so much pressure and not have to show up so heavily. So I just think that this would be a great spot because the Warriors have to move off of Wiggins or Jordan Poole at some point because you're paying, $1 billion in luxury tax for this team that after this season may not ever have the success again. A lot of teams are going to get better. The Clippers especially are going to be better on paper. They're arguably the best team in the entire league. This team is still small. They still have that issue. Yeah, Wiseman may come in and help with that. But is Jordan Poole going to want to come off the bench his entire career? I don't think so. But if you move off of Wiggins, then maybe you have Jordan Poole, or like I said, you can flip Jordan Poole and go get some other pieces. And then you have, essentially your core four. You go get a center, which this free agency has a just treasure trove of centers. You go get one or two of those centers. Now you're in the position. I think Kevin Durant would make up for the lack of size just so heavily because he is such a mismatch. And we saw with the Warriors, they were literally unbeatable before. I think that they would continue to be unbeatable now. You flip Jordan Poole if need be to get some more assets, maybe a young center, maybe something along those lines. Maybe you flip Jordan Poole for Ayton and a couple pieces and you kind of try to make that work. There's a million ways that you could go about it, but I think ultimately this would be the best route for all parties and all teams involved. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you think, Kevin Durant could just go back to the Warriors? You're going to win. You're going to be happy. You tried to lead your own team. It hasn't worked. It didn't work before in OKC. It's not working in Brooklyn. You just got swept in the playoffs with Kyrie Irving. Yeah, I think Kyrie, Ben Simmons, and KD is a team that is very interesting, and I'm very fascinated to see what develops. But, it looks like Brooklyn is done with Kyrie. And if Kyrie leaves, then it's just you and Ben Simmons. I don't know if that's good enough to really contend. I just think that you're very likely just going to get swept in the first round again. Maybe you win. Maybe you advance to the second round and then you lose in the second round. I just don't see Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons with a bunch of role players being a championship contender. I just don't. But he can go back to the Warriors where we know he fits. He knows he's comfortable there. Him and Draymond just got to work it out, which they seem to be friendly. They seem to be good. They've been going back and forth on social media, but it's been friendly. It hasn't been like what it is in the past. And they've both sort of stated in the past that that they regret the way that they handled it. They regret the way that they went about it, that things should have went differently. So I don't know. I just think it's something that really could develop. But anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. Do you love this? Do you hate it? Either way, again, it's just a thought. It's just something that I am throwing out there just to see what people think and to start the conversation. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.